Thank you so much, Mulenga, and welcome back to everyone who attended yesterday's session. Indeed, we are up for another exciting day full of panel discussions and research presentations. For the panel, there has been a few last-minute changes. I understood that Habiba, unfortunately, is unable to attend, and Melissa would take her place, but I see that Melissa is also not online yet. So I suggest we go ahead with the panelists we have, and that is on the one hand, John Ulimwengu from the International Food Policy Research Institute, and Aaron Silva from the University of Ghana School of Public Health. In the interest of time, because we have to end a little bit early to give Kate Schneider the opportunity to present at a 1:45 GMT. So I would request the speakers to try to keep the time slots to the allocated time slots, and first present themselves and then very briefly, and then we will discuss we will go through two consecutive rounds of questions that the panelists will be asked to respond to. Maybe, John, do you want to kick off and start by introducing yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is John Ulimwengu, Senior Research Fellow at IFPRI, International Food Policy Research Institute, based in Washington, D.C., but it's part of the CGR consortium group. And I'm among those supporting the implementation of the CADEP framework, the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, supporting AUC, African Union Commission, and AUDA, NEPAD. It just happened that I'm currently in Lusaka, where we are AUC and AUDA NEPAD are holding the 19th platform partnership meeting for the CADEP. So we are celebrating 19th anniversary of the implementation of the CADEP. So my presentation will be very brief. We sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's in the middle of open. Can you give me just a few minutes? All right, sorry for that. So you have a couple of, so ACP, that's the African Common Position on Food System, as part of the UN Food System Summit. African countries, they agreed on this common position. And then the CADEP biannual review, which is the platform for reporting on the implementation of the CADEP agenda. I added NAIPs. NAIPs stand for National Agriculture Investment Plans. Why? Because the CADEP BR platform is supposed to report on what is in those National Agriculture Investment Plan. Actually, you have two layers of those plans, the regional layer, RIPES, and the country layer, which is the NAIPs, as tools to domesticate the overall CADEP agenda. So my presentation will be just to try to look at the map, the need to report on the food system pathways as part of the African Common Position on Food System, and how the existing CADEP BR can accommodate reporting on those. Oops. So for those who are not familiar with the BR, the CADEP MNE framework, so to speak. So the whole CADEP Malabo, yeah, it's a lot of that. So you have the CADEP, it started with the Maputo Declaration in 2023, and then moved to Malabo Declaration in 2014 with 7 commitments. Recommitting to CADEP processes, enhancing investment and finance in agriculture, ending hunger by 2025, halving poverty through agriculture by 2025, boosting intra-African trade in agriculture, commodities, and services, enhancing resilience to climate variability, and the mutual accountability for actions. This 7 commitments are reported on based on a couple of performance categories. And I put them, all of them, starting from the first round all the way to the 4th. You can see the increase. So the first round started in 2017, the second in 2019, the third 2021, and we just completed the 4th one in 2023. And you can see the number of those performance categories. In addition to the performance categories, you have the actual indicators that we use to track progress with respect to each of those commitments. And you can see the number on the 4th BR, they move up to 59. But behind those 59 indicators, you have a universe of parameters, more than 200 of them that are being combined to produce those aggregate indicators to report on the CAADP BR, the CAADP agenda through the 7 commitment. So now let me move to the Africa Common Position on food system as a result of the UN Food System Summit. Okay. You have more or less 6 pillars. The first is ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all, shifting to sustainable consumption patterns, boosting natural positive production at sufficient scale, advancing equitable livelihood and value distribution, building resilience to vulnerability, shocks, and stress. And there is a cross-cutting pillar. And for those familiar with the UN action tracks, they are more similar, built around those UN action track with what one will say in African flavor. So what I did was to look at the indicators that are being reported on through the CAADP BR and to match them with the food system pathways as defined through the African Common Position on Food System. So this is the first layer, the aggregated layer. Basically, yeah, I mean, depending on which food system pathways the current BR framework can help report on those. I know there is a push to, increase to add some indicators into the CAADP MNE as of now, but the first thing that we are trying to do is to look at what exists and how it can accommodate reporting on food system pathways across the continent. But at aggregated level may be a bit misleading. So what I did was to take each food system pillar under the African Common Position and look at all the performance indicators, so to speak, and see how the CAADP framework can help report on those. And just for the sake of time, I highlighted those that I call the orphans, the one for which there is no indicators within the current CAADP framework to report it on them. For the first pillar, food system pathway, things like adoption of policy and fiscal measures across ministries to support food affordability, establishment of national and the regional food reserve, and operationalize food trade corridors. Those don't have any indicators to report on them. The same for ACP, the African Common Position pathway number 2. There are a couple of actions, couple of interventions for which we don't have any indicators in the current CAADP framework. The same for the third the fourth, the fifth, and of course also the ACP, the cross-cutting food system pillar under the African Common Position on Food System. So that's more or less the first look at how the existing CADEP M&E system can accommodate reporting on those food system pillars. And again, this is just a pure accounting. It has no, we are not assessing the actual value of the existing indicators within the CADEP framework to report on food system. What we are saying is that there is something in the toolbox now that can help report on some of the food system pathways, but still there are some holes, some orphans for which we might need additional work one way or the other. However, and that's why I said I will bring up the NAIPS. What we need to ensure first is that the food system pathways in the African Common Position be part of the National Agriculture Investment Plan first, because it's not just a matter of reporting. You need to report something that it's already within the National Agriculture Investment Plan, something that they're already implementing. Then we can see how we can report on those. And the next move will be to upgrade the current CADEP biannual review process to accommodate reporting on those food system pathways. We still have to develop metrics and benchmarks specific to those pathways so we can measure progress as we go. And the last, not the least, is we need a comprehensive, what I call food system baseline to serve as a reference for monitoring progress. So in short, that's pretty much what I had for today. Thank you. You are muted. We can't hear you.
Apologies. Thanks so much, John. That seems like a very impressive body of work that is ongoing. Silva, do you want to go ahead and present yourself and maybe in short your contribution also as part of the annual trends and outcomes report?
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, everybody, for making it to this morning FERN session. Thank you so much, John, because that was an excellent background to the conversation today. So you just observed a presentation on the different indicators that exist to monitor progress across the different performance category from the CADEP and then commitment made at the Malabo Declaration back in 2014. So what we did in our case was to ask one question, was to ask after the 2014 commitment, there was the SDGs were put in place back in 2015, and then in 2021, after the UN call for all government and head of states around the world to commit to transform, improve the food system because of the public health crisis or emergency that we all are aware. And yesterday's conversation was all about that. So what we did was to take those commitments, and I think we recorded around 219 commitments only made from African government and head of states. We had one question, was how responsive were these commitments to some priority actions, for example, the priority actions set by the WHO, and those priority actions span across about 7 areas on labeling, marketing restriction, marketing restriction, food safety, fortifications, and fiscal policies, and among others. Why? Because we saw that there was an opportunity to transform the food system in a way that provides sustainably healthy diets to the African population. If these areas were reflected in these commitment, and so that's why we ask ourselves these questions. Aside that, too, we were also interested to see how across all, so we picked the commitment number 3, which was focused on reducing poverty and hunger, food security and nutrition. And it has 6 different performance categories. And we're interested to map how responsive those commitment made at the Unit Food System in 2021, how responsive they were across all these 6 performance categories. So what we found out, really in a nutshell, what we discovered was that it's most of those commitments were geared towards improving agriculture, right? So we're going to step up production and culture inputs. Some we're talking about sustainability and empowering women and youth in this whole process of transformation. Egypt has a very interesting commitment because Egypt had was the commitment made. One of the commitment made by Egypt was how do we finance this transformation, and then they were committing to develop a strategy or an approach to finance this transformation on African continent. So, and by the way, the commitment that were from from about 20 those commitments, it became clearer that there was a tendency to sustain food security, right? Food security in the sense of increasing production. However, there is also a call to shift from nourishing the people in Africa to feeding people in Africa to nourishing them. So in other terms, yes, these are very good resolutions to improve the agri-food system, the food supply chain, and through that to reduce poverty, to create jobs. However, it's also important that whilst we are increasing access to food on the continent, we also promote access to quality and healthier food in a more sustainable way, right? So these were some of our observation when we analyzed those commitments in our book chapter, and we also argue that the future of the food system is going to be much more complicated as we go down the line. So right now, it's an incredible opportunity that we have to call for not only a quantitative change, but also a change in the quality of our diets, and a change that would take care of the planet and make sure that our future generations still have food. If we miss this opportunity now, it's going to be much more complicated down the line to execute or to demand those changes. And those 7 priority policy actions area proposed by WHO are excellent one. The question that the area that Egypt wanted to address by how can we finance this transformation in a sustainable way? Well, it's not I wouldn't say a super excellent one. However, we can tweak our food environment, our policy environment in a way that we can generate money from food that are not healthy right now, and at the same time discourage the consumption of these type of food, and rechannel the money that we levied from these unhealthy food into addressing nutrition or NCS related issues in our content. So that's a way of answering partially the question of how do we get funding to address these some of the food system issues that we identify in our continent. of course, in that same book chapter, we also highlight the importance of monitoring progress on those commitments. And in monitoring those progress on those commitments, there is a big gap, which is data gap, because just like John just indicated right now, we need to expand the number of indicators that we have to inform us about progress in certain categories of the transformation that we want for Africa. So that's, but there are existing frameworks that could direct or guide us in what indicators would be useful in monitoring progress in specific areas of the transformation that we want for Africa. So that's my submission for now, and I'm happy to expatiate more.
Thanks very much, Silva. Those were very useful insights. And also like the attention you draw to the fact that indeed we do not only need to focus on sustainability and food security, but also on the nourishing aspect, hence the link with the nutrition. I see that Melissa has also joined us. I would like to invite her to the panel and maybe to elaborate a little bit on what, in her view, is being put in place or is necessary in order to be used as a guardrail to safeguard against conflicts of interest that will inevitably arise when dealing with implementation of large-scale government initiatives and efforts, as just elaborated by John and Silva. Melissa, do you want to put on your video?
Okay, I understand she may not be able to come now. However, in that light, what happened, what we did, so it's not a model that was tested at global level, regional level. But in the case of Ghana, when, for example, we were down here, was about to begin drafting those food-related policies to try to, so that include procurement, fiscal, marketing restriction, and labeling. So when we were about to draft these policies, we saw it really important to anticipate that there would be a situation where not only us will be interacting with government actors, and it's a very important actor when we want to pass policies. Not only we will be interacting with these actors, but other actors in the food system will also be interacting with them. And at that stage, depending on what interest you're trying to defend, the ultimate outcome, which is to improve the food environment, gets to change. So what we saw was to create some form of awareness. So I think over here, the most important thing is that to what extent those who even pass those policies are aware that their intention to improve the environment can even be manipulated and changed, and there are tactics that they may not be aware. So what we did in Ghana was to organize a closed-door meeting, a very high-level closed-door meeting, a workshop, where we showcased them, okay, this is what happened here in other part of the world. This is some of the tactics that they use. And this is probably what you could expect as we embarking in this journey of drafting those policies. And yes, indeed, this information was really useful. And the other thing too that we need to ask ourselves is at this institution level, at the government level, what structure do they have in place to monitor and to manage conflict of interest? So are there gaps that we could fill in order to prevent those interactions? So first of all, awareness, and second, identify the gaps, and third, being able to fill those gaps in order to allow for, I would say, a fair process of policy development. Because at the end of the day, what we are passing, definitely everybody can feel comfortable about what we want, what this policy seeks to do. But it's important that we prioritize what needs to be prioritized, and knowing the consequences of not taking action in the near future. So this is really like a really small scale model that we've adopted in Ghana here. Maybe it could work elsewhere. Yeah, that's what I have to say for that.
Thanks, John. Silver, apologies. John, you want to respond to that?
Yes. The beauty of the food system approach is that the recognition that to achieve the sustainable, healthy diet for all requires the involvement of different actors, different institutions that may have different interests. It's just the nature of the system. But we need to make sure that every actor is behaving in a way that at the end we achieve that common, so to speak, common goal. So that's one. Second, and that's why it's so important to what we are suggesting to countries. Actually, there is a book coming out next week, I believe, from my colleagues on the political economy of food system. It's something that we, I think, didn't pay too much attention. I'm speaking on the side of the CADEP implementation. So now on, in some of the countries, we have pilots. We are piloting something in Ghana, Malawi, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, including Niger. So we start with mapping of food system, which include identifying all the actors in that food system, between those actors, so that we can better capture those conflicts of interest or the political economy. That is, unless we understand, we might end up on the wrong side of outcome. So that's one. Second, one of the issues that we observe, especially through the implementation of the CADEP, is the lack of coordination at country level, which is critical because, it's when you go to a country, ask who's in charge of food system in a country. There is no single entity that will say, okay, I am in charge of food system. Many times, ministries, government entities tend to work in silos, which is contrary. I mean, you cannot, and often we made the mistake to think that food system transformation was primarily the responsibility of ministries of agriculture, which was a big mistake. When the Maputo Declaration was signed in 2003, the target was very simple: 6% growth, 6% agricultural growth. That was the target. Well, you can achieve 6% agricultural growth without reducing poverty, without addressing security, without addressing food insecurity, without addressing malnutrition. Why? Because we focus on agriculture section, and therefore the Ministry of Agriculture. But now, with the food system approach, I hope that we are all understanding that we need the Ministry of Health, we need the Ministry of Finances, the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Land. But someone has to coordinate all these folks because it's not a natural process. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
That's a very important point to make. And actually following up on that, I wonder if the aspect of intersectorality or multisectorality or whole of government approaches to achieve these objectives of food systems transformation, if that is being captured. I'm not too familiar with the kind of architecture. Maybe, John, you can tell us if there's any indicators even related to that.
We do in the CADEP Malabo commitment. There is a commitment. There is commitment number 7 that deals with mutual accountability. In that commitment, we have indicators on coordination. But of course, this is the 4th round of that assessment. that's one of the indicators where almost all the countries are failing. Country still work through, like, in silos. It's for me, that's the building block for any food system transformation. We can agree on what the food system is. We can agree on what the expected outcome is. We can even agree on what the interventions are. But somebody or a group of people, actually, because it's not a one institution show, it's not a one group show. It is really a coordination of, look at it. You start from access to inputs, production, processing, storage, distribution, all the way to those in charge of food safety, the health sector. So that's a huge group of people. If there is no coordination, you end up with conflicting. So one of the things that we are looking at through the political economy of food system is the coherence of policies. In the same country, you have the Minister of Agriculture saying something which contradicts what the Minister of Trade is saying, and nobody is noticing. Why? Because of lack of coordination at that level. And again, it gets even worse because you have two layers: the national layer, but we are trying to build a resilient local food system. So if it's not happening at national level, it's even worse at subnational level. So it's something that we need to invest much more on. Thank you.
Thanks so much for elaborating on that. Given all that, the barriers and the facilitators, do you think we've got enough resources, time and commitments to fulfill or meet the expectations and fulfill a promise? Silva, what is your take on this?
Oh, I think it's really important to be optimistic first, but to be optimistic in a way that we can optimistic and also be able to hold those actors accountable. It's important to be optimistic because we have reached a stage where, like I was saying, we have reached a stage where I think, to me, my perspective is we don't have any choice. When COVID hit, everybody went back indoor, right, for a number of time, but quickly we didn't realize that we can make without food. We can live without food. It's not an option. It's something, and then our system failed because a lot of people went hungry. A lot of people quality diet went bad. And I'm sorry, I don't think COVID is going to be the only thing that would have to face. And so I think it's important to be optimistic, first of all, but it's also important to monitor the type of the trajectory, that the change that we want on this continent. It's important to monitor that, because if you lose track of the important objectives to achieve in this transformation, if you don't have a system that is inclusive, if you don't have a system that takes care of the planet, at the end of the day, the African continent still suffers much of the consequences of missing those steps. So we need to have a mechanism where we can, first of all, keep track of what is being done and revisit what we said we're going to do and keep improving that. We are just less than 6 years to 2030, sorry. I still think that we're having tremendous amount of progress, because we can see already on the African continent that a lot of work is being done on the policy side. We had the showcase yesterday. There's a lot of work going on, so we can remain optimistic. However, to say that we're going to meet all those targets by 2030, yes, I want, but I'm not 100% sure that would happen, though. But it's important to be on the trajectory that we're on. That's what I would say.
Thanks, Silver.
Do we have time and resource? Do we have resources? Time, I don't think we have time because we should have done it yesterday or even the day before yesterday. As we stand here, we have 250 million Africans that are malnourished. It's not something that we can wait one more day. And among them, 50 million children under 5 that are stunted. So, you know, we don't have time. The Malabo commitment target is 2025, which means in 2 years, I don't see in 2 years, you know, making sure that those 250 million suddenly receive what they need in terms of, but resource-wise, we have the resources. The continent has the resource. I mean, 60% of arable land is in available global global-wide arable land is in Africa. The population is young, growing. We have water. We can tap into the digital revolution. So in terms of, I don't really worry about the resources. It's more 2 things. First, we need to sit down and be honest, do a honest review of why are we not making the expected progress. I call that the food system baseline. Let's look at the whole system. Let's identify the point of strength and the point of weaknesses. In the US, they say if it's not broken, don't fix it. Why? Maybe because of ignorance, we are allocating resources into the area of food system that, okay, but because of ignorance, we are missing the point of failures in the system. So we need to sit down and do that assessment. And we started, I mean, at least on the, as far as CADEP is concerned, because 2025, there is a post-Malabo, 10 more years. Remember, Africa walks through the 2063 African Union agenda. So, but if somebody is angry today, he or she is not going to wait until 2063. So that's very important. And then just we need it's there, the political buy-in for food system transformation, but we need to become more serious when it comes to mutual accountability. How do we make sure that those in charge of those interventions, policies, are accountable? And of course, we keep repeating ourselves, you need to involve the youth, the private sector. So in terms of resources, we have the resources, have the time because of those numbers. We just need to be a little bit more serious in how we roll out interventions and the better outcomes as what we are experiencing now.
Thanks so much. So if I get it right, there's indeed need for more awareness that would require advocacy, maybe on behalf of certain pressure groups or constituencies, in order to make it, put it right back on the table, in order to hold people accountable. I'm not sure we have almost a few minutes left now. Maybe we can take just one question from the floor. I'm pretty sure that somebody may have or want to comment on what was just discussed, the regional food systems transformation agenda and where we are at, enablers, barriers, facilitators from a country perspective, people who are present on the call. Does anybody want to comment? If so, please raise your hand or type it in the chat box. If not, we're also happy to take questions afterwards. Okay. Everyone is quiet. Well, then it is my duty to close this panel now because we want to hear from Kate Schneider from the Food Systems Global Initiative, or the Food Systems Countdown Initiative, rather. And I understood that Kate is also stretched for time, so I want to give her the floor as we speak. Thank you so much.